Hello. Thank you for listening and coming back for part two of Private Dowding's story. Open quote. The Awakening. If you would dwell in peace, learn to love deeply. Private Dowding. 16 March 1917, 5 p.m. You will be surprised. I did not expect to speak to you again. I will tell you how it has come about. I have met the messenger again. I fancy he was looking for me. He wanted to know how I was getting on. I told him I had broken off communication with my Earth friend on his advice. He said he had been speaking to my brother and had learned my history. My brother had told him how much consolation I derived from speaking to you. He then said that perhaps he had spoken a little too hastily, without full knowledge of the facts. He did not think there would be much harm if I kept the channel open a little longer. He impressed on me the importance of reminding you that the conditions now surrounding me are impermanent, and to that extent unreal. From his standpoint, the value of such messages as these depended upon the emphasis placed on this fact. The spiritual world is everywhere. The life of spirit is eternal, perfect, supreme. We humans hide from the light. We grovel among the illusions created by our thoughts. We surround ourselves with misconceptions. We refuse to rise into the Christ sphere. The Christ sphere is everywhere, and yet, by some strange paradox, we were able to shut it out from view. All these thoughts were new to me. I begin to see what is meant. If I did not do so, I could not pass the ideas on. You say these thoughts are quite familiar to you. I am surprised at this. What a little world I have been living in. This messenger evidently came from the Christ sphere. Religion never meant much to me. Now I begin to see that one cannot live without it. A great deal was said about reflection, how we can clear out our own poor thoughts, illusions, and allow the Christ power to reflect through us. Evidently, this power is wonderful. The messenger seemed to love to speak of it, yet he was in awe of it. It clears away illusions as the sun clears away fog. He said, I am still living in a fog of my own creation and design. Well, once I thought I knew a lot. Then I was sure I knew a little. Now I know nothing. It appears that the war is based upon an illusion. I wonder what my old Parisian friend would say to that. Since the Great War began, I believe people have thought it was the only reality on earth. Now I am told it is all based on illusion. I am told that lust for wealth, of one material kind or another, was the real cause of the war. Nevertheless, as a result of the war, all the nations engaged will be far poorer than they were before. This idea had not crossed my mind. I was told another thing. Your war down there is being turned into a celestial instrument. It was put to me like this. Material forces are becoming exhausted. That is to say, the more they are used, the less they achieve. Strange thought. People will realize that material force leads nowhere, is indeed an illusion. I cannot quite grasp the idea yet. Apparently, the impotent clash of conflicting material forces is creating a kind of vacuum. The messenger said this fact implied a supreme mystery. Into this vacuum, spiritual power is to be poured and poured. He had seen with his own eyes the reservoirs. He spoke of these reservoirs with bated breath. The light of heaven is reflected in them. The water of life fills them. This life is still beyond our conception. Our human life is but a shadow. High beings, God's messengers, guards the sluice gates. They await the word of command. Then will the water of life be released. Already it is available to many. Do you remember that passage in Revelation about the river of the water of life, bright as crystal, proceeding from God? The messenger told me that we are entering into the period of revelations when all prophecies will be fulfilled. These things are beyond me. While he was speaking, I felt as if I were suspended in space without visible support. Those high and holy matters are of a spiritual nature. They do not belong to the realms of illusion. I cannot attain to such ideas. I hardly dare to contemplate them. I pass them on because I believe they may justify me in keeping the channel open between us. If I only report matters that interest me, connected with my present illusory surroundings, the avenue between us will close up. We cannot live on the celestial heights until we have completed our work in the valleys. That is how I feel. A friend of mine once tried to climb Mont Blanc. He turned back long before the summit was reached. He could not breathe in the rarefied atmosphere. The guides and the rest of the party went on. Alas, that I should be one of those forced to turn back. I never used my opportunities during earth life. My spiritual nature atrophied. You must excuse this self-analysis. How wonderful it must be to be among those who never turn back. God willing, I will begin to climb. God willing, I too will never turn back. God willing, the whole human race will never turn back now that it has begun to climb. The messenger said that a cycle was ending, that human life had just entered an upward arc. This conveys very little to me, but I pass it on. I am sad. I am worth so little. I will come again. 16 March 1917, 8 p.m. When I left off speaking to you, my brother came up. He said I needed rest. He blamed the messenger for telling me more than I could stand or understand. William took me to a hall of silence. I had never been there before. Heaven's dome was above me. The silence of the spheres surrounded me. The loneliness of the desert was my only companion. There I seemed to remain a very long time, but time also is an illusion. The meaning behind this word still rouses conflicting emotions within me. Shall I be forever the slave of my own illusions? It is impossible to tell. I shall visit the hall of silence regularly. Strength and consolation came to me within its walls. All that the messenger had said came back to me. Understanding of many truths dawned within me. One great truth has become my constant companion. I sum it up thus: empty yourself if you would be filled. The waters of life can never flow through me until I have surrendered my whole self. I begin to see the wisdom of this. You take it may convey nothing. To you it may convey nothing. I have begun to try to pour myself away. It is a strange experience. Jesus talked of the children. They entered heaven. The gateway was barred to the wise men. Children have little to unlearn. Although I know nothing, yet I have much to unlearn. This is indeed a paradox. I believe this hall of silence is available to you also. Try to find the road that leads there. War roars through your lives. The thunder of it is everywhere. I am still unable to shut out its rumbling completely. Somewhere within the soul there is silence. Attain unto it. It is a pearl of great price. I speak of what I know. I do not think the importance of silence is dwelt on sufficiently in the Christian Scriptures. I never remember being taught its vast importance when on earth. I begin to realize what is meant by the still, small voice of God. I am now more myself. My brother has offered to let me help him in his work. I am glad. Good night. 17th March, 1917, 5 p.m. I have looked into hell. I may have to return to that region. I shall be given my choice. Grant that I may be strong enough to offer myself freely. Hell is a thought region. Evil dwells there and works out its purposes. The forces used to hold mankind down in the darkness of ignorance are generated in hell. It is not a place, it is a condition. The human race has created the condition. It has taken millions of years to reach its present state. I dare not tell you what I saw there. My brother needed help. A soldier who had committed very evil deeds had been killed. I will draw a veil over them. He was a degenerate, a murderer, a sensualist. He died cursing God and man, an awful death. This man was drawn towards hell by the law of attraction. My brother had been told off to rescue him. He took me with him. At first I refused to go. Then I went. An angel of light came to protect us. Otherwise, we should have been lost in the blackness of the pit. This sounds sensational, even grotesque. It is the truth. The power of evil. Have you any idea of its mighty strength, its lure? Can that power be an illusion too? The angel said so. The angel said the power of hell was now at its supreme height. It drew its power from man. As man rose towards spiritual life, the powers of darkness would subside and finally become extinguished. Extinguished is my word. The angel said transmuted. That conception is quite beyond me. We descended gloomy avenues. The darkness grew. There was a strange allurement about the atmosphere. Even the angel's light grew dim. I thought we were lost. At moments, I hoped we were lost. So strong is the attraction. I cannot understand it. Something sensual within me leaped and burned. I thought I had emptied myself of self before undertaking this great adventure. Had I done so, I should have been safe. As it was, I should have been lost. But for the angels and my brother's help, I felt the giant lusts of the human race. They thrilled through me. I could not keep them out. We descended deeper. I say descended. If hell is not a place, how can one descend? I asked my brother. He said we were not moving in the physical sense. Our progress depended on certain thought processes evoked by the will. It is all very strange to me. I now remember that the messenger told me I was not to dwell on what I saw and felt in this dark region. Therefore, I will hurry on and not dwell upon the details. As a matter of fact, I never reached the point where the rescue was attempted. The angel and my brother went on alone. I waited for their return in what seemed to be a deep, dark forest. There was no life, no light there. The angel said that was the most insidious kind of hell, stagnation, because no one recognized it as such. Contrary to belief, hell itself, or rather that part of it visited by my brother and the angel, is brilliantly lighted. The light is coarse, artificial. It keeps out the light of God. In this awful glare, the angel's light nearly lost its radiance. All this my brother told me afterward. Those who die, filled with thoughts of selfishness and sensuality, are attracted down the gray avenues towards this hell of the senses. The darkness of the deep forest appalls, the loneliness is intense. At last, light is seen ahead. It is not the light of heaven. It is the lure of hell. These poor souls hasten onwards, though not toward destruction. There is no such thing. They hasten down into the conditions that are the counterpart of their own interior condition. The law is at work. This hell is a hell of the illusions and is itself an illusion. I find this hard to credit. Those who enter it are led to believe that the only realities are the sense passions and the beliefs of the humans. This hell consists in believing the unreal to be real. It consists in the lure of the senses without the possibility of gratifying them. I was told a great deal more about this awful region, but I must not pass it on. The angel said that the condition would ultimately dissolve into nothingness. Hell, or apparently that part of it we are speaking about, depends for its existence on human thoughts and feelings. The race will never rise to greatness until the passions are controlled. This refers to the nations and to individuals. On earth, I was never interested in such matters. I did not realize the existence of the sexual canker at the heart of human life. What a terrible thing this is. Do not wait until you come over here. Set to work at once. There is no time to lose. Gain control of self. Then retain control by emptying yourself of self. All the thoughts of lust and passion, greed, hatred, envy, and above all, selfishness, passing through the minds of men and women, generate the condition called hell. Purgatory and hell are different states. We all must needs pass through a purging, purifying process after leaving earth life. I am still in purgatory. Someday I shall rise above it. The majority who come over here rise above, or rather through purgatory, into higher conditions. A minority refuse to relinquish their thoughts and beliefs in the pleasures of sin and the reality of the sense life. They sink by the weight of their own thoughts. No outside power can attract a man against his will. A man sinks or rises through the action of a spiritual law of gravity. He is never safe until he has emptied himself completely. You see how I emphasize this fact? Some of these thoughts came to me whilst I waited in that gloomy forest. Then the angel and my brother returned. They had found him for whom they sought. He would not come away. They had to leave him there. Fear held him. He said his existence was awful, but he was afraid to move, lest worse conditions should befall him. Fear chained him. No outside power can unchain that man. Release will come from within some day. Sadly, we returned to our own places. I began to realize what power King Fear holds over nearly all of us. The angel said that fear would be destroyed when love came into her own. He said the time was coming. I have much to think about. I am going into the hall of silence. If I can return again, I will. Goodbye. 17 March 1917, 8 p.m. Soon after returning from the states of hell, I met the messenger again. He said I had not learned sufficient of the spiritual life to visit such dark regions with impunity. He took me with him toward a mount of vision. The light was dazzling. No doubt he had thought such a pilgrimage would prove an antidote to my journey towards the demon realm. It was almost too much for me. I can remember little of what I saw. I gazed upon the reservoirs of illumination. They were afar off. They nearly blinded me. The messenger told me many things concerning the manifestations of God to man. He said a prophet of the Most High was in charge of each of the gateways to these reservoirs of light. When darkness and ignorance grew apace among men, the word was uttered. Then the prophet, whose turn it was to descend among men, made deep obeisance and opened wide his own gateway to the reservoirs of life. He descended to the earthly regions that he might guide the spreading of the new illumination. The messenger told me that one of these holy prophets fulfilled his divine mission during the last century. He said the illumination then released was about to spread through east and west. The prophet had returned to heavenly spheres, his work accomplished. His work would become manifest when the war was over. The war itself was an outward manifestation of the powers of evil in their attempt to obstruct the inflow of the light. It was very interesting, but beyond me. He said a spiritual revival was destined to take place within all the great world faiths. He said that unity would become established, that universal peace would become an accomplished fact. He seemed to imply that the golden era was at hand, nearer indeed than we could realize. He asked me to return to the Mount of Vision with him, but I feel I dare not do so. I am unworthy. I cannot unself myself sufficiently. Such heights are not for such as I am. I return to my own place alone by the force of an interior gravity. But I ask you to mark the messenger's words. He spoke of what he knew. Let his words blaze forth a channel through the minds of men. I ask this of you to make them known. End quote. And we'll stop there for part 2 and look for part 3. What an interesting story. And how about the descriptions of hell and kind of the workings of hell? You know what I thought was what he said when he was talking about people's thoughts, making them descend down because they were heavy. He said, the law is at work. Thank you for listening. Have a great day.